Hi guys, I hope you're well. I thought I'd do a video today about 5 things that can trigger your IBS that have absolutely nothing to do with FODMAP. So some of these things are true for me, some are true for Mark, others are true for like both of us. And I thought it would be good to just let you know of these so that you can bear them in mind if you're really confused about what is giving you a stomachache. So the first thing that triggers my IBS is sugar. Now obviously fructose is a high FODMAP thing, so lots of fruits contain lots of fructose and therefore that's why they're high FODMAPs. So for instance, watermelon and grapes. But there are loads of fruits that are quite low in fructose that I still can't eat, which is really frustrating because, you know, you look on the FODMAP apps or on the website and see, oh, this fruit is low FODMAP, I should be able to eat that. No, my stomach doesn't agree with it. And there's loads of other types of sugar in the world as well. It's not just all about fructose, there's like sucrose, and I'm not even going to try and say all the others, but for instance, just normal like caster sugar and brown sugar and muscovado sugar, all of these things are just standard. They're not high FODMAP foods, but my stomach really can't take them. So it's just really frustrating. So if I wanted to have maple syrup on pancakes, maple syrup is a low FODMAP food, I would just really struggle. I can have the tiniest amount, but if I'm having a bad day, I sometimes can't even have that. Like, you know what it's like with your stomach? Sometimes you can like tolerate loads of something, other times you can't. It's really confusing because you don't know what it's gonna be like, so you try it out and then you're like, why did I bother trying that out? I think that's what I'm like with sugar, but 9 times out of 10, literally all sugars really affect me, and obviously that's really annoying because sugar is in pretty much everything, even in a sort of preservative form, and that makes food just a real issue. So always think about it in terms of sugar. It might not just be those high fructose fruits and stuff that you can't tolerate. You might find that you have issues with other things. I do, so I'm sure I'm not the only one. The next thing that triggers both mine and Mark's IBS is cold carbs. Now, I'm sure you weren't expecting me to say that. You're expecting me to say like a specific food or something, but cold carbs are a nightmare. Like seriously, like what if you want to eat cold pizza? Let's say you have a massive pizza, like a massive gluten-free pizza, and you can't eat it all. And the next day you say, oh, I'm gonna have some for breakfast or for lunch. You can't. Like, we literally can't. It absolutely annihilates our stomachs. And we were confused by this for so long that we would eat something like a gluten-free and a lactose-free pizza, and we'd be like, why are we feeling so awful and bloated afterwards? And we came to realise that it was cold carbs. And this isn't just like bread, like pizza kind of things, but also I find cold potatoes hard. So like roast potatoes cold, obviously you don't really eat them very often like that anyway, but I really struggle, even when you've warmed them up again. It's the whole thing of them being cold and then being warmed up and stuff. It's really weird. And then that goes for pasta. So gluten-free pasta, or any pasta, if it's cold, I cannot eat it. It's the worst. So a pasta salad is something that's really nice and something that people often have for lunch, but for me, cold pasta is not okay. It's the worst. It feels like my stomach is really, really just like expanding, and I can't even describe it. It's horrible. So I really think this is something that people should be really, really mindful of, because it can't just be me and Mark at all. It must be other people. And I think it's something that you wouldn't really consider ever, that it could be cold carbs, but seriously, I can't tolerate cold carbs or cold carbs then warmed up again. It's just a big no, and I just thought I'd let you know about that. So my third thing that triggers IBS, and this is something that triggers both mine and Mark's IBS, but probably Mark's even more, is high fat foods. Now, there's loads of high fat foods that are low in FODMAP, so lactose-free products are thought of as a low FODMAP thing, but if they're high fat, then it doesn't really matter. So I'll give you an example. This week I made a low FODMAP, lactose-free cheesecake. It was gluten-free, lactose-free, it looked perfect, it was idyllic, it was gonna be the best dessert ever. We made it looked great, and then Mark tried it. Well, I shouldn't really laugh at all, but I worked bloody hard on that cheesecake. It took me ages. It was a really nice baked one. It was lemon, it had raspberries on it. But yeah, it was gluten-free, it was lactose-free, it was low FODMAP, all these things. but Mark's body just couldn't handle it. He had a slice one evening while we were watching telly, then I fell asleep, as I do quite often, and then when I woke up, he came over to me and was like, I don't feel well, I feel awful, and he was like, I'm never eating it again, which wasn't very nice of him really. It made me feel a bit like crap, because I'd spent so long doing it, but I completely understand because, you know, how you feel when your stomach goes like that, it puts you off certain foods completely. So high-fat foods can be a real massive no-no for people with IBS like me and Mark. So what's also included when you talk about high-fat foods is red meat. So most of our diet when we're eating meat involves just white meat, so turkey and chicken. But red meat, no. Red meat is low FODMAP. For goodness sake, red meat is low FODMAP, but beef and lamb and pork are a massive no. I might be able to tolerate them a little bit. This shows how people's stomachs are quite different in that, yeah, I can have a little bit of beef, maybe a little bit of pork, but Mark definitely can't. He cannot tolerate them at all. When he's had it, you'll know about it, and that's not great. And he just feels really, really rotten. And it is just about that high fat content. It doesn't matter that it's low FODMAP. It doesn't matter that there is no gluten in it. There's no, there's no onions or anything in it. There's no seasoning that's weird. Just plain old red meat doesn't agree. And I think everyone definitely needs to be mindful of that just sometimes the body I think it just gets an overload. You know, we've always been told throughout our whole lives that fat is bad. Fat is not bad at all, but some people just can't tolerate too much of that high-fat food. And so you just need to be aware of it. Maybe it's something that, for instance, you can tolerate just a little bit of it, like I can, or maybe it's something like Mark, where you just can't, like, I don't know, like a lamb chop for Mark would be absolute hell. But for me, it might be okay. So it really does vary from person to person. But high-fat foods like, high-fat cheeses that are lactose-free and red meats, all of those things can really, really trigger your IBS, or it does for us. So my next thing that I thought I'd talk about in terms of triggering IBS are drinks. Obviously not all drinks, but there are certain drinks that really, really, really affect us. For me, fizzy drinks are an absolute nightmare. So when you're a kid and you just go a bit mad for Coca-Cola, or I did anyway. I used to get a really terrible stomachache after drinking Coke anyway, but now, I have not drunk any fizzy drinks in so long. I used to drink them quite a lot when I went out on a night out, because obviously you have it as a mixer, but now, no, definitely not. They just do exactly what you'd expect them to do, really. Fizzy drinks are fizzy, and fizzy things like explode and expand and everything. You shake a can of Coke, and it will just go everywhere when you try and open it. And I think that's what happens with my stomach. It just sort of like the Coke or the lemonade or any fizzy drink in the world, it gets inside it, even sparkling water here, and it kind of just goes all angles. It just seems to like punch outwards and give it loads and loads of pain, and it's really, really unpleasant. And a can of Coke, can of Lilt, anything. Actually, I love Lilt. But all fizzy drinks, they're not worth it. And I just thought I'd let you know, because some people don't realise that fizzy drinks can really fizz up inside you and give you grief. And also, on the topic of drinks, alcohol. Now, obviously there are some alcohols that are high FODMAP. I believe rum is high FODMAP, but most alcohols are supposedly low FODMAP, and so you feel like you should be able to drink all of them. But for me and Mark, we haven't drunk in ages. I haven't drunk since my 21st birthday, really, which is mad, because I'm 26 now, and it's quite sad, but it's just something that we can't do. For me, I don't think it's so bad, but it's bad enough that I don't want to drink it. For Mark, he says he gets this like burning sensation inside, and he completely flat out refuses to drink. Me and him, when we first met, we met in like a bar in town where we were completely like pretty drunk, and now we can't think of anything worse. We do dream about it sometimes, but alcohol for us is a massive no. It does that same thing. It just makes me feel bloated and sick. And for Mark, this burning and awful effects can go on for absolutely ages. I've seen it, and it's really horrible. So just be mindful. I know everyone loves to drink alcohol and have a good time and feels like, you're a bit of a party pooper if you don't, and you don't really feel like going out sometimes because if you can't drink. But honestly, it might be for the best if you just consider alcohol when you're thinking about your stomach, if you're not sure about what's affecting it. My final thing that can trigger my IBS is another drinks-based thing really, and that is caffeine. I can't do caffeine at all. I've never been a massive coffee or tea drinker. I honestly have barely ever had a cup of coffee in my life. I don't think I've ever had a full cup because I thought it was really disgusting, but I've learned that caffeine really disagrees with me through other things such as Red Bull and such as like Coca-Cola, as I said earlier. And also something that I found really sad was when I realised I couldn't drink Lipton iced tea anymore. I was on holiday once and I was having a bottle of it and I just felt really rotten after drinking it. So that's quite sad. But yeah, like coffee, tea, Red Bull, Coke, all these things. There's loads of things that probably I don't even realise have caffeine in them. But they just make my stomach do exactly the same thing. Cramp, expand, feel like rubbish. And again, I know that a lot of you love your coffee and maybe love your tea, but if it's making you feel a bit groggy and a bit rubbish, I don't think it's a good idea really. For me, I just drink peppermint tea, which has got no caffeine in it at all, and all herbal teas and stuff don't have caffeine in, which is great. But yeah, caffeine is just one of those things that can trigger people's stomachs to just get a bit angry and stuff, so be mindful of it, even though I don't believe it's high FODMAP. So those are 5 things that trigger my IBS that have absolutely nothing to do with FODMAP. It would be really interesting to know if any of these things affect you as well. Like, do you struggle with alcohol or cold carbs? I'd be really interested to know about cold carbs because it's not something that's often spoken about. You often hear people say that high-fat foods can, you know, make you feel a bit unwell and alcohol and everything, but cold carbs is definitely one that I don't hear very often. So I'd be really interested to know if that affects you. And also, if there's anything that you find that isn't a FODMAP food that you just cannot tolerate. Maybe something that's even low FODMAP, that's classed on the lists as low FODMAP, but your body still just can't deal with. I'd be really interested to know. So let me know in the comments below if there's anything that you struggle with as well. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, give it a thumbs up, like it, and subscribe to me for more videos like this. See you later, bye!